Yo, what's up guys, welcome back to another video. This is a reaction to 20 reasons why the USA is still the king of the world, and it's from the Geography Bible. I've been reacting to the channel quite a lot recently, but let's just check this out and see the reasons for this and the reasons the channel, I guess, puts up in this video.
Regardless of your opinion of the United States, it is undeniably the most powerful and influential country on Earth. In recent years, the United States has battled with its own internal problems. From my eyes, there has never been a bigger divide between the left and the right, and the south and the north. And with pretty much every social media company being based in America, all of their problems have been on the world stage for everyone to spectate. It is impossible to be a country of this stature and magnitude and not have your critics. However, the USA still dominates every other country in so many aspects. Of course, there are many aspects in which it scores poorly, but the main metrics which determine whether a country is a superpower or not are in the US's favour. So in this video, we've got 20 reasons why the USA is still the king of the world. Starting off with number 1. Most valuable.
See, this always baffles me, man. When you actually think about it, so many of the big companies are just from the US or based in the US or whatever it is. I mean, in the top 10, there's 8
companies.
Wow.
At the time of making this video, 61 out of the 100 most valuable companies on the planet by market cap are in the US.
Wait, I was wondering if there's any in the UK that were here. There was one that popped up.
Planet by market cap.
HSBC 93. Come on.
Are in the US. Out of 195 countries in the world, this one single country accounts for 61% of the 100 biggest companies. Apple, Microsoft, Alphabet and Amazon are first, third, fourth.
Why is it called Alphabet? I'm so confused with this Google Alphabet. I don't get it. Is this what they changed their name to or something? I'm so confused.
And fifth most valuable companies in the world respectively, with a total market cap of 8.2 trillion US dollars.
Damn.
Roughly the same as Germany and Japan's economy combined. Number 2. The world's largest economy. Although China is rapidly catching up to the US in terms of economy size, the US is still reasonably ahead with a GDP of just under 23 trillion US dollars compared to China's 17 trillion. China will eventually catch up and surpass the US in the next decade or so. However, this is just an arbitrary number. Once China does overtake the USA, it's not as if this will send the US into decline. If anything, it will push the US to be even more competitive. Number 3. Most Nobel Prizes.
Okay.
The Nobel Prizes are 5 separate prizes that, according to Alfred Nobel's will of 1895, are awarded to those who, during the preceding year, have conferred the greatest benefit to mankind. The USA has been awarded a total of
Damn, the United Kingdom's number 2. The more you know.
400 Nobel Prizes. For reference, this is around triple of the next highest, the UK at 138. Another way to visualize this is that the US has won around the same amount as the UK, Germany, France, Russia / the Soviet Union, and Sweden combined. Fun fact, if you are awarded a Nobel Prize, you also receive 1.1 million US dollars.
Oh, you get money for it.
And
I thought it was just the award and recognition you get. Oh no, you get a fuck ton of money as well.
A gold medal. Number 4. The richest man or richest men in the world. Although born in South Africa and now an American citizen, Elon Musk is the current richest man in the world, with a total net worth of around 260 billion US dollars. At the time of writing this script, of course. In fact, 7 of the richest 10 men on the planet are all from the US. Most notably, Jeff Bezos of Amazon and Bill Gates of
There's multiple people in Google here as well.
Microsoft. Number 5. Medical research and development. In monetary terms, America dominates the field of medical research. The US spends more than any country in the world on medical R&D, with total expenditure hitting 543 billion US dollars in 2017. And American researchers publish the lion's share of science papers. Although in terms of percentage of GDP, Israel and South Korea spend the most on medical research. Number 6. higher education. America is home to Massachusetts Institute of Technology, or MIT as it's more commonly known, the planet's best university, and US higher education institutions, which are renowned the world over, took the first 3 spots on the QS World University Ranking List of 2020. That prestige comes at a price though, as those same universities also take the top spots for the world's most expensive places to study.
I mean, it makes sense, to be honest. The harder it is, or the better the university, like the harder it is to get in, or the better the university is, it's going to cost more. That's just sort of how it is.
9 out of the top 20 universities in the world are all located in the US. Number 7. Most Olympic medals. At 2,959.
See, the Olympic medal things, I know that Great Britain used to be terrible. Even like 30 years ago, I sometimes just find myself looking at old Olympic tables. And one thing you find, firstly, is the United States is always first. But Great Britain was terrible like 30 years ago. And then in the last, since probably like 2012, really, become really good. And I think in terms of like the percentage of, or the amount of people in Great Britain, like medals, ratios of medals to people, Britain does really well. And it's just weird to me how over the last 30 years they were terrible in the Olympics. And then they've got good. Winter Olympics, Great Britain is awful though. I mean, that's just factual, but there's no snow here. There's no real way to train for Winter Olympics here, but we're third in the all-time table, which is mental to think. We're third in the all-time table. I know that's not even what we're looking at. I mean, the US is more than triple Great Britain, but you know what? I'll take that, man. We're like near the Soviet Union with the population and power it's had. China's below us. I mean, I think they're catching up because they do really well in the Olympics, but
the USA has by far the most Olympic medals out of any country in the world. Next would be what was the Soviet Union with 1,204, and then Great Britain with 950. But how is the USA so darn good at winning Olympic medals? Well, there are many reasons, such as a large population, richest country in the world with plenty of resources, and a very high level of patriotism. Number 8. Box office revenue.
Here we go.
While India's Bollywood is the world's largest movie industry...
What? I know Bollywood's massive. I guess because there's so many people in India, right? Is Bollywood big outside of India, like the surrounding countries? I assume it must be if it's number 1 in terms of making the most money. That's crazy. Bollywood, fair enough. That is wild to me.
In terms of the number of films produced and tickets sold, the world's oldest, America's Hollywood, leads the way in terms of box office receipts.
Okay, there we go. I was thinking they made more money, but okay, that makes more sense then. Because I was thinking all the money that's involved in Hollywood and then like the advertising and all that sort of stuff in the US and I guess Europe as well, the Western countries, it's just a lot of money involved. Makes sense that they would make a lot more money.
It totaled over $11 billion in 2019, which is more than a quarter of the $42 billion made globally. It is arguably also the biggest industry in terms of international cultural influence. Now, why is this important? Well, people from all across the world watch American TV shows and movies. Sometimes you will hear people from around the world with American accents who have never stepped foot in the country. This is because they learned English or American English by watching American cartoons and shows when they were younger. This level of influence culturally benefits the US. Number 9. Most billionaires. At 735, the US has by far the most billionaires in the world. Next, and catching up fast, is China with 539 and then India with 166.
Damn.
Remember, both of these countries have a population around 4 times larger than the US. Now, although billionaires aren't really liked on the internet, they usually reflect a country's success. And these billionaires who hold enormous wealth tend to have lots of power, not just in the US, but across the world. Number 10. GDP per capita. Although the US does not rank as number 1 for this statistic, it ranks extremely well. Somewhere in the top 10. I say somewhere as different organizations rank countries differently. The US's GDP per capita is around the $70,000 mark, which with a population of over 330 million is very impressive, as most of the countries above the US are quite small. Number 11. its population size. Although not the most populated country in the world, and in fact nowhere near the most populated country in the world, it is in fact the third most populated country at around 332
This is a few years old, and I know India's surpassed China now, I think.
million inhabitants. It also ranks as the 5th most productive nation in the world when it comes to work. And with a workforce of 151 million, this creates a booming economic powerhouse. Although the US has a smaller population than the entirety of the EU, it has a larger GDP by about 25%. Number 12, the most powerful military. Although it doesn't have the biggest army in terms of personnel, it does have the strongest, with a budget of an eye-watering $600 billion US. To put this in perspective, that is more than the total GDP of the likes of Belgium, Thailand or Nigeria, a country with over 200 million people. Despite spending cuts, the United States spends more money on defense than the next 9 countries combined. America's biggest conventional military advantage is its fleet of 10 aircraft carriers. In comparison, India, which is constructing its 3rd carrier, has the 2nd most carriers in the world. Number 13. Space exploration. The first country in the world to send mankind to the moon. The USA is undoubtedly the world leader in space exploration, aerospace and aviation. The nation has reaffirmed its top spot with the recent SpaceX rocket launches, which was the first ever commercialized space flight. In addition to pioneering space travel, the US leads the planet in aircraft engines and parts, jets, helicopters and more. Number 14. Largest road and rail network and most airports. Now this one is seriously impressive. The US has a total of 6.7 million kilometers of roads, more than any other country in the world and in fact more than the European Union. The US is responsible for more than 10% of all roadways on the planet. It is a similar story when it comes to rail networks. The US has 220,000 kilometers, more than any other country and again more than the EU. And finally, the USA blows every other country out of the water with the amount of airports they have, at over 20,000.
What the how is this? I mean, I say how is there space? It makes sense, but how? How there are over 20,000 airports? I mean, there must be some very small ones and a lot of military ones, I assume. Actually, that would probably be the reasoning for this.
20,000. Next is Brazil with 3,900 and then Mexico with 1,700. The USA is also home to the busiest airport on the planet, Atlanta International Airport. In 2021, it saw 75.5 million passengers pass through. In fact, the top 7 busiest airports in the world all reside in the USA. Number 15. Most aid spend. At $34.6 billion, the US has spent by far the most in development aid. Next is Germany with $23.8 billion and then the UK with around $19 billion. The US's 3 biggest donations have been to Afghanistan, Ethiopia and Jordan with $1.2 billion, $1 billion and $902 million respectively. It must be noted, however, that the US does not rank as the highest in the world when it comes to aid per capita. This would be Norway at $813. The US's is just 96. Number 16. Most unicorns. And no, we don't mean the mythical creature. A unicorn is a privately held startup company valued at over $1 billion. The USA has around 460 companies which meet this criteria. Next will be China with 301 and then India with 100. Startups usually reflect the country's ease of business, prosperity, entrepreneurship, and business freedom. Startups often solve modern-day problems and can usually grow to become companies that can pretty much control or change the entire world. Having so many of these companies based in the US gives them a huge advantage over other nations. Just take a look at the power Google, Facebook, and Twitter hold, for example. Number 17. Reserve currency. The mighty US dollar has been the unofficial world currency since 1944, when the historic Bretton Woods Agreement pegged all currencies to the greenback, backed by the world's largest gold reserves. These days, an estimated 61% of the world's foreign banks have their currency reserves in US dollars, and 40% of the world's debt is denominated in US bills. Many countries around the world also allow you to pay for goods and services with US dollars, even if it's not their official currency, and as the US dollar is so widely used and referenced, I use it in my videos rather than Great British Pounds, which is less commonly.
Oh, people on YouTube will use dollars. Like, there'll be British YouTubers that'll have like challenges related to money, and it will be in dollars as instead of pounds, because people will just be more. I don't know if it helps just with the click-through rate in terms of people will click it if they see the dollar sign, but it just helps with the YouTube algorithm if there's just dollars instead of pounds, even if it's a British audience and all that sort of stuff. It's very weird, but I guess it makes sense in terms of it's the most recognizable currency, so that in that sort of way it does. I do understand it.
Used. Number 18. It has the New York Stock Exchange. Founded on Wall Street in 1817, the New York Stock Exchange was by no means the first of its kind, but in the last 200 years, it has grown to be the largest in the world in terms of market value. The NYSE has over $26 trillion worth of equity, and its value exceeds that of the next three biggest, the Nasdaq, the London Stock Exchange, and Tokyo Stock Exchange.
The London Stock Exchange. I'll be 100% honest. I didn't even know there was a London Stock Exchange, and I live in the UK, so that's enough said about that.
Combined. Number 19. Its geographical position. The US's geographical position makes it almost impossible to successfully invade. With the Atlantic to its east and the Pacific to its west, it is almost like an island, with the biggest moats imaginable. Its neighbour and younger brother Canada lives in the north, and although USA and Mexico don't see eye to eye, there is absolutely no chance of an invasion. Let's compare the US's location with that of India's, a country that is surrounded by many other countries. Some of those
Pakistan,
being superpowers with nuclear
China.
weapons. The size of the country and the variety of terrains also play a factor in making the US one of the most difficult countries in the world to conquer. And finally, number 20. Most Super Bowl
This has to be a troll.
wins. Just kidding. The USA has, well, everything. It has gigantic megacities like New York City, Chicago, and Los Angeles with that hustle and bustle vibe, mountains, tropical beaches, deserts, and so much more. When people think about America or look at America on a map, they often forget the territories of Alaska, Hawaii, and others, which offer completely and utterly different vibes and climate. It is estimated that around a third of Americans have a passport, which makes complete sense when their country has everything there is to offer, and each state has its own culture. Why travel for 7 to 12 hours on an expensive flight to another country or continent when everything you could ever want is on your doorstep? Now, of course, just like any other country in the world, the USA is not perfect. It ranks very poorly in so many different aspects, especially quality of life compared to other developed nations. However, when it comes to
I don't understand how that's the case though, because surely if you've got so much money, I know this, maybe this is like, it's easy to answer that in terms of they'll just spend all that money on other things that like the military or aid to other countries, or just certain things within the country that maybe it just shouldn't be going towards those things. Like the quality of life in the US, like being ranked so low, I don't understand that, because when a country's so rich, I just assume, okay, the country's this rich, so people are going to be living the highest possible quality standard of living. Like, but I guess maybe when you're comparing it to the other, some countries that have the best, it's going to look bad, but then in the overall grand scheme of things, it's not ranked. Like, it's still ranked pretty high. But yeah, I mean, this is one of those things that I just don't fully understand.
Metrics and rankings that correlate to a country's dominance and power, the USA is undeniably at the top.
Well, there we go. There we go. Hopefully you enjoyed this reaction. And yeah, until next time, let's subscribe. Peace.